Hi, I'm Andrea Dindinger, a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been practicing for over 20 years. I love helping couples. Today, we are going to be reading some Reddit stories around marriage stories. Here we go. My marriage was worse than I thought. Oh dear. 2 weeks ago, my wife of 15 years and I had a big fight. She ended up posting some vague cry for help type posts on Facebook. And I get a call from my brother. I'm not on Facebook, and he knows that, so this was him calling to let me know and asked me how she was doing. I want to say my brother and I never talk about relationship stuff, mostly because I don't want to bitch at him about my wife and engender any ill will between them. Before I continue, I want to just say, everybody needs somebody they can vent to about their spouse. And you need to have somebody that you can be like, she is driving me batshit crazy, in a way that allows you to process that whatever comes up in relationship. It's totally normal. But what you need is that if you tell your brother or whomever something negative about your spouse, just make sure he knows there's also positive things. Tell him, don't give you advice, but you need somebody. So I wish you were sharing that with him. Anyway, back to your story. My brother and his wife are basically our couple date partners. We play board games every couple weeks. We go on vacation together since our kids are around the same age, etc. Okay, so this is why you don't want to talk to him about your marriage, because he's going to tell your wife. And his wife is friends with my wife. Well, I thought so. And they text about things a decent bit as well. So I wonder if your sister-in-law is your wife's go-to partner. And I was always glad that there was a friendship between the four of us and never wanted to risk it. I can feel the vulnerability there. But this time was different. I was in a dark place, and after I assured them that my wife was fine and we had just had a fight, I basically broke down and told him how unhappy I'd been lately. I think that's a good thing to do. I know it's vulnerable. He stopped me and said, "Hey, just so you know, my wife is in the room with me and she heard a bit of that." I was like, "I don't care. Put me on speaker for all I care." Okay, so you're needing some support here. I told him basically I felt like my wife was always putting me down, arguing with me over trivial shit, and just generally being rude and condescending to me. I asked if I was imagining it. You probably weren't imagining it. You know when somebody isn't being kind to you. Let me tell you, the dam burst. He basically said, "Of course I wasn't imagining it. Everyone knows she does that. You know it too. People have talked about it plenty of times." Then his wife starts talking. She says she's seen how much I pour into the relationship and how little my wife does. Things are out of balance. How my wife never helps with the kids, how she orders me around, how she's just basically mean to me all the time. Then goes into a story about how her dad always talked over her mom, stuff I'd never heard before, and how she tried to get her mom to leave her dad over and over, and said if I decided to ever make the decision, the kids would be fine, and it was better, in her experience, than growing up in a toxic household. Wow, your sister-in-law just gave you permission to leave your wife. I realized my sister-in-law is telling me she thinks I should get a divorce. That is exactly what she is telling you. And it is true, your kids will be fine. Divorce is a very significant loss and moment of grief and disruption for everyone. But being in a toxic marriage in that way is really, really painful for your children as well. I polled one or two other friends over the next couple days. They all said the same thing. I didn't realize how bad it was. I half thought I was imagining it. Apparently, no one likes the way my wife treats me, And they're all amazed. I thought this was just normal couples bickering. It's so funny how we don't know sometimes if this is normal or not. I mean, that's one of the gifts of Reddit. I love this. So please, if you have a friend or loved one like me who's in a bad relationship and is still in it for reasons you can't fathom, maybe pull them aside and talk to them sometime. An outside perspective is really important, and I didn't have one until now. Oh man, it's true. An outside perspective is so important. And at the same time, none of us are in each other's marriages. And just because you wouldn't stay married or your sister-in-law wouldn't stay married to your wife based on her experience with her mom, it doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't. We all choose our own paths. We all come together for so many reasons that are even bigger than we even possibly know. I wonder if this is less about you needing to divorce your wife and more about maybe you standing up to your wife and setting some boundaries and saying, like, do not speak to me that way, or that's not okay, or wow, you are speaking to me in such an incredibly sharp and mean tone. Are you okay? What's going on for you? Are you so unhappy? Because the way you're treating me makes me think you are like filled with poison. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to leave your wife, but it does mean you need to set some serious boundaries. And I'm glad that you at least have your brother and your sister-in-law that you can process this with. Good luck. Here's our second story from Reddit Marriages. My wife upset with sex frequency. Whew. My wife, 24 female, and I, 27 male, have had rough patches in our marriage, but we love each other and have really great times and enjoy each other's company. However, for quite a few months now, I've often denied sex and have had a low sex drive. I wonder if you should go to the doctor and have a blood test, have your testosterone checked. You guys got married young. This is interesting. Okay. I haven't had a low drive historically, even when we dated. We both work from home. That's part of the problem. Too much togetherness. I'm certain of it. And I own and run a couple of businesses. But after our wedding, we have been traveling so often and visiting family and going to out-of-state weddings. And it's not like me to do all that. All this travel is to make my wife happy, as it's her wish to visit people and her family and such, without prioritizing my business or my home, both of which I have severely neglected to the point where a significant chunk of my additional income is now zero. And I rely on just my salary from my full-time job, and my newly purchased home after our wedding has been vacant for 70% of the past year. Oh, you're feeling resentful. You're not able to hold some boundaries with her, and you're resentful for how much money you're spending. And that resentment is what's getting in the way of your sex. It's not necessarily around your testosterone, probably not even necessarily about you spending too much time together at home. It's about you not asserting this boundary. She tells me that she knows I love her and I adore her, but I don't desire her, and that it's not normal to have such little sex, especially this early on in our marriage. In some ways, she's right. Like in the beginning, that's when you should be having a lot more sex. But intimacy isn't just about sex, right? I think there's some emotional intimacy that's missing, that you're not able to express your fears and concerns and worries around your finances. And that's a really important component of a marriage. She is constantly upset that when we do have sex, once every 2 weeks or so now, sometimes once a month, it's only because she initiates, and I never actively want her or want to have sex without her turning me on. That's interesting. So you're pulling away from her. It's like silently pulling away, and she's feeling it. I just don't think about her randomly. And apparently, that's not normal or healthy. Well, I don't know if that's not normal or healthy. I think it sounds like you're pretty preoccupied. You're working a couple of jobs and you are not sharing this financial stress with her. And you guys are in a partnership, in a marriage, and she needs to be in on that. I always chop it up to my very low self-esteem now because I don't make the money I used to. I've gained 30 pounds and am actually very upset with my life in general now because I thought getting married to her would be having someone by my side to grow and be better with. I'm wondering if you're actually kind of going through a mini depression of some sorts. Gaining 30 pounds, to me, seems like you're trying to soothe something inside with food. And if you're not feeling comfortable in your body, of course you're not going to want to initiate sex. I know she can enable that side of me because she has, but it's been a downhill personal journey since our wedding. I don't have any drive to have sex. As for me, sex is pleasure. I want to have my life in order before having pleasure. That's also really interesting. Like as if you don't deserve to enjoy your life. You're not setting boundaries, and there's this way that you're being mean to yourself. You're soothing yourself. You're being mean to yourself. You're soothing yourself with food, and then you're saying you don't deserve to have pleasure. You can have pleasure the first time you pee in the morning. Like that's one of the most pleasurable feelings in the whole world. If you really pay attention to it, you absolutely deserve to be and experience pleasure, even though you're not making any money. Those two are not aligned. There's something for you to look at there. I have tried initiating it a couple times, but she feels that even when I do, it's because she in some way has already enabled it. She's picking up on something. I don't know what to do anymore, and it's a constant point of contention in our marriage. We argue constantly about this, and it just ends in us being frustrated for days, and nothing gets done around the house, which in turn frustrates me more. Would a marriage counselor or a sex therapist be a good idea? Absolutely. Absolutely. I see a couple of things here that you're struggling with, and it makes my heart break. One, pleasure is part of being in these bodies. We experience pleasure and we experience pain. That's part of being a human. You cannot deny yourself of pleasure because of something not going well with work. The other thing I really want you to look at is when you're eating, why you're eating, what you're feeling underneath there that you're trying to cover up, that you're trying to soothe. Because it's really easy to overeat when you're depressed. The other thing I really, really want you to do is get outside and move your body. Go for walks with your wife. Move your bodies together. And then I think you need to talk to her about your finances and the way your home is being lived in, how you're living your life, how you're spending your money, how you're spending your resources, how you're spending your time. I think therapy would be a great idea. It's not that you're not sexually attracted to her or that there's something wrong with you sexually. It's that you're not sharing with her emotionally what's happening for you on your inside, whether it's your low self-esteem, your concerns about money, and that is blocking your libido. And it's making her feel bad and her feel sad, and it's making you feel bad and you feel sad. Sit down, talk about it. One of my most favorite things for couples to do is just get in bed naked and talk. Just share everything that's going on in your head. And when you do that, you're starting to create that emotional intimacy. And sometimes when you do it, sex naturally occurs because there's that connection that happens. I hope you guys get some help. I'm thinking of you. Third and last story from Reddit today. Seems interesting. My wife cheated on me and I'm less. I, 36 male, got cheated on by my wife, 34 female. It happened about a year ago, and I'm working to forgive her so we can move forward as a family. Since it happened, we have had no intimacy in our relationship. I've been really struggling with depression, I bet. Even though I'm trying to keep it together for the kids, I don't know if I can keep living like this. I've had a feeling for the last couple of months that she's been cheating again, but I cannot prove anything. You've got to listen to your intuition. We know things that we can't even know sometimes. And she denies it any time I bring it up to her. Of course she's going to deny it. But I have no trust in her, and every time I bring up my lack of trust, she gets defensive and starts an argument with me. It has taken a toll on my mental health, and I've been looking for reasons to not go home. Am I blowing this out of proportion? Should I forgive and forget and just move on? Oh man. It's so complex. Infidelity it's so hard to repair from, especially if the person who cheated doesn't take any accountability for their actions and doesn't have that sense of like remorse and that apology in there. It's really, really hard. I feel very, very sad about this, but I feel very adamant that you have to listen to your intuition. I would really, really suggest you guys get into couples therapy, and maybe even you into individual therapy, for you to build a sense of your own internal confidence, to look at this feeling of depression, this drive to not go home. That's not fair to your kids. That's not fair to you. That's your home. But there's like this big freaking elephant sitting in the middle of you and your wife's marriage, and you're not addressing it. And if you go to see a therapist will help her when she starts getting defensive, when you ask about these things, because she's feeling scared. Anytime we get defensive, it's because we don't want to talk about something. And so she's feeling insecure. I imagine she feels like crap that she did that to you. And there's some things that you guys aren't talking about. You need to sit down and talk about this in order to repair it. And you need to be able to come back to her and ask her, like, what else aren't we talking about? What else do we need to be talking about here? Why did this happen in the first place? What was happening for you in our marriage? What was I doing? What wasn't I doing? Let's find our way back to each other. I really, really highly suggest couples therapy. Good luck with it. I hope it turns out. All right, guys, that's it for today. Lots of great stories. I really appreciate doing this with you. I love talking about relationships. I have a free newsletter. You can sign up in the link below. It's great. We talk about all kinds of things that come up in relationship. If you want more of this content, subscribe to my channel. That's it for now. Be well. Keep having those hard conversations.